Hi, I'm Greg Lott, Assistant Director of Athletics and Assistant Professor here at Denison University. So I have this vivid recollection of being a young freshman at Dickinson College, actually, and I was sitting in this audience with my peers, and various administrators came up to the podium and had all different kinds of remarks. Frankly, I really don't remember any of them. I probably wasn't paying all that much attention, too busy thinking about what I was going to do to get to know my new classmates that evening. But there was one thing that really did stand out. So our then Dean of Students, Joyce Bylander, came up to the podium and said that I genuinely hope that you learn just as much outside of the classroom as you do inside the classroom. And I remember I perked up and I thought, wait, so my sport's part of my education here? This is really cool. And it was. I had this really transformative experience through my sport that really, frankly, it changed the trajectory of my life. And so for that reason, one of my favorite times of the year is when I get to sit down with our upperclassmen and talk to them about how they've really been impacted through their sport experience here at Denison. And so that's what we get to do today. I've got three phenomenal individuals with us for this outdoor socially distanced or physically distanced panel. So we've got Dan Wilson, All-American swimmer, long distance swimmer, from a national champion team, originally from South Africa, and he started his career at Grand Valley State before he wised up and decided to come over to the Big Red. We have Anthony Ruggieri. Did I pronounce your last name right? Ruggieri, yeah. I'm not even close. Sorry about that. Our starting second baseman, who, by the way, I think was 5 for 5 in the last game of the NCAA tournament against Adrian this past year. And we have Trey Dawkins, who is an all-NCAC, is it a right tackle?
Right tackle last year, yeah.
Right tackle last year, okay, who also has the pleasure of blocking for his brother on the team. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, I asked all of you to think of some kind of a specific story or a specific thing that you've learned through your sport experience, a particular way in which you've grown. So, Dan, we'll get started with you.
All right, so my experience started, I joined Denison, obviously, as a sophomore, and I sat through this panel with the freshmen, the current juniors, and I listened and learned and heard a bunch of things, but I wasn't quite too sure what I was getting into and what that experience might mean. In my athletic experience, I come from a background where we compete kind of against each other within a team, not for the success of the team, but more for the success of yourself as an individual. In South African swimming, the team sort of basis isn't really the focus, it's more kind of the individual and where you can take yourself. And so coming here to America, that was actually a sort of new place for me to learn and to grow and to understand what the sport actually entails at sort of the team success level. And so my specific story takes course over my sophomore and junior year. It was actually my birthday, the 11th of December, my sophomore year when I first got to Denison, and I was experiencing how hard Denison swimming and diving can actually be, specifically as a distance swimmer. We kind of get it. We enjoy some privileges, like a few guys in the lane, but with that privilege comes the responsibility of doing all the hard work that it entails. And so we were down. It was a morning practice. It was my birthday. I'm not too sure anyone on the team knew it was my birthday at that point, but I wasn't having the greatest day of my whole life, and I got a little bit huffy, and that sort of negative energy kind of projects onto a bunch of other guys. And so Greg called me aside after practice and he said, listen here, you have an extremely competitive nature, and that is like one of your best strengths, but every time you overplay your strength, it turns into a weakness. And so it is a sort of lesson in learning how you need to be kind of self-aware with the implications that you can have on those guys around you. And at the time, I was just a brand new sophomore joining the team. It was my first semester, so I didn't really understand that my actions can really have an implication on those around me. And so fast forward down into my junior year, I was having probably one of the best years of my swimming career to date, doing a lot of hard work, sort of leading the team, like coming through, leading guys through big sessions. And I was sort of someone that we kind of look to in times of struggle, because that's where I sort of flourished most. And so we had a morning practice we did what is called the Johnny Walton Challenge, ex-Denison students, and it's a dryland challenge that the swimming team does. It took forever and it was painful. But then we thought, all right, so that was the long morning. Saturdays are usually nothing too serious. So we came back for a swim right after that. And I thought we were all just going to get in and swim out and enjoy our Saturday. But I mean, I was foolish for thinking that, because here at Denison Swim and Dive we work. And so it was an insane session. And I just done the dryland session, we got through it, it was all good. And now, especially once you've relaxed, this was a challenge hitting you right in the face. And so we got up and we started doing the session, and I wasn't near the top where I would have preferred to find myself. And it was in that moment I found myself reverting back to sort of the old ways, getting a little bit down on myself, a little disappointed. And Bebe Wang was in the lane next to me, a senior last year, and he said, don't overplay the strength. And it was at that point that I took a second, refocused, focused in, looked inward and said, all right, is the energy that you're wasting on being upset with yourself right now and portraying like a negative attitude having a positive effect on how fast you can be swimming right now and those around you? And so I kind of wound it in a little bit, looked in and said, all right, I just need to relax and focus on putting in some good lengths to create a good swim, and hopefully that energizes those around me to do the exact same, especially in this challenging moment. And so that is the biggest lesson that I've learned in those two specific incidents, is how being self-aware and being aware of the attitude that you're putting out, and sort of your thoughts and emotions during hard times of struggle around, especially in the team environment, where being positive actually not only helps you and being aware of what's going on inside of your head, but helps all of those around you. And so being self-aware is probably the biggest lesson that I've learned here at Denison.
Wonderful, thank you. Anthony, what kind of story do you have that really demonstrates a way in which you've grown?
Yeah, so I feel like I have grown tremendously throughout my time here at Denison, especially being part of the baseball team. But one of the unique things that I think I really noticed here, especially being a part of the baseball team, is be able to find an individual identity. And I feel like that's something, especially looking back on, that I didn't have in high school so much, and I really found that here at Denison. And I noticed that really early on, looking up to the upperclassmen, mainly the seniors my freshman year. They're just an absolutely incredible group of guys. And I looked at them and I said, you know, those are the type of people that I want to be around, and I want to act like them one day, and I would like people to look at me the same way that I look at them one day. And I was kind of asking myself, I said, well, what do they have that I don't, and that I maybe have never seen before in a group of people? And I finally figured out that they all act in their own unique and individual way, and they really don't care about what other people think about them, to an extent, obviously. But I found that really interesting, because all throughout high school, when I looked at my friends in high school and, you know, people I looked up in high school, but they all did care about how people viewed them in high school. You know, you kind of conform to your social environment a little bit, but that wasn't the case here, because you were always accepted here, especially on the baseball team. So whenever I was going through my freshman year and I was kind of finding my way with my friends and everything, I really kind of came out of my shell a lot, and I could finally be the person that I kind of wanted to identify as. You know, and I found that the more I did that, the more I was actually accepted, and I think people started to actually maybe like me more as the more individual I got. And you know, I think whenever you look around the baseball team, and also across every sport on this campus, you see just so many unique individuals, just being themselves. And I think that's something that's lost a lot. But I really learned over the past 4 years, just the more you can be yourself, the more you can be your own unique individual. Honestly, the more you're accepted, the more enjoyable of experience you'll have, and the better relationships you'll get out of the whole deal.
So Anthony, I've got to ask. I mean, it sounds like that the environment of your particular team kind of, you know, allowed for that expression. How have you been able to do that outside of baseball? Has that been transferable?
Yeah. You know, I think as you kind of find who you are and you kind of break out of your shell a little bit, that can really translate, you know, off the field also, especially on top of the hill academically. And you know, as I kind of broke out of that shell a lot, I started talking to people that I never thought I would talk to in my life, especially, you know, even if they weren't an athlete, if they weren't on the baseball team. You know, and that's just going into classes, sitting next to someone else and talking to them. You get to learn about their background, and, you know, they learn about yours, and you kind of start to find and connect, into like kind of the characteristics that you have, and that they have, and that's something that maybe you never realized before. But you get to really meet new people and get to connect with new people that maybe you've never thought you would connect with before.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So Trey, how have you developed specifically through sport?
So mainly it was in the beginning of my freshman year, right when I arrived. And I think a lot of other freshmen would agree with me when they come in, especially if you've had like I would say a respectable high school career. Like you leave a superstar, well-known, and you're where you come from, and then you come to Denison. And I mean, my first experience was like, dang, these guys are big, they're strong. Especially the class of 2019, like really big guys. But I think from then it was really just about personal growth and how I could kind of impact the team and use my role to help us succeed. I had a feeling coming in, like, especially seeing these guys, how big and strong they were and how well they played together, it was like, I guess I'm not the man anymore. It's more about the team and not the individual. And that really stuck with me, especially with football. I mean, there's 100+ guys on this team. And I mean, it takes all of us working together, even the guys, if you're not necessarily playing on Saturday afternoons, you're really contributing throughout the week, lifting hard, practicing, and really trying to get the guys who are going to play better. And who knows, if your number gets called, you got to go out there and perform and help us win. And so that role that I was playing, necessarily just getting beaten up by the older guys, and just filling in that role of kind of contributing to the team was really helpful in my personal growth. So when it was time, when my number was called, I was able to step up and help contribute to the team. And that's really what the older guys preached to us when we arrived, especially my class of freshmen. I mean, they were really excited when we came in. They thought we had a lot of potential going in, and we still do. I mean, we're still juniors, we'll have some time left. Hopefully, with COVID passing by, we can come out next fall and actually get to play and really show what we've done over the last 3 to 4 years. But it really was the older guys that came up and preached to us about, teamwork, working hard, and just going through the process of starting out as a small freshman and building up into being really powerful Denison senior.
Absolutely. And how do you see that playing out, once you leave the Hill?
Coach Tatum, our head coach, really preaches to us that like football really builds us. It really isn't just like about the sport, it's about building up you as a man, as a person, because I mean, you can't play football for the rest of your life. At some point you got to hang up the cleats and go on with your life, and that's what I plan to do when I graduate. So I feel like football has really given me this drive of understanding who I am as a person. Like, it's such a cliche to say a hardworking individual, but I mean that really rings true, because nothing in the world is really given to you. You got to earn it. And so in life, in whatever you do, whether you're a doctor, lawyer, businessman, you just got to work hard and really just go through the process of building up as an entry level, and if like for a business example, an entry level analyst or associate, and then working up to being an executive in your 40s and 50s. And that's kind of how I connected that with football, was a small freshman coming up and being a leader, co-captain, all conference, all area, all American player or athlete.
Yeah, but it sounds like, and then also not forgetting where you came from of being that freshman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dan, I want to follow up with something that you said. So you talked about really, developing the self-awareness, through really tough workouts in particular, right? Where it's really rough.
Tough workouts, and also being aware of where everyone else might be and how you can either lift them up with your attitude or bring them down, whether you're at the front or at the back.
Yeah.
I found myself in both places.
So I'm curious as to if you've noticed, that notion of lifting up or bringing down other people, and your ability to do so, outside of the pool as well.
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to also work as a CA on campus too. And so you find yourself dealing with a very different or wide variety of different kind of people in that role as well. And people are dealing with completely different challenges, might it be roommate conflicts, or people are just having a tough time. I've worked with first years before, adjusting to the new regiment of what Denison might be. And there's a lot of different ways to frame things. Transitioning from a different school where the academic and swimming load was worked out a little slightly different, versus coming to Denison, really academically rigorous and probably one of the hardest working groups in the country at all levels, you kind of have to learn how to adjust and shift your perspective, look at what are the goals that you're trying to achieve and which is the best way to get there. And being aware of each individual's kind of area where they aim to succeed the most and dedicate the most kind of energy, sets those small goals and eventually reach that long-term goal can be something that you can use your self-awareness of how you deal with those small little things in practice every single day and apply it to a completely different scenario. It's sort of like a small little formula that you learn how to put together, and you can apply it to a bunch of different areas. I myself have applied that sort of to my academic sort of path that I'm trying to take. I'm an international student as well, so with COVID coming along, that was a whole new stress of where am I going to live, how am I going to work, how am I going to eat, and COVID came along and I didn't have to wake up at 5:15 every morning, so in that formula comes a couple of positives. You know, we experienced some loss with not being able to go to NCAA, and there's some negative signs in that formula, but you try and arrange each little piece of your life so that you can come out with a positive perspective, and I think that that's the most important thing. Once you have that, you can kind of address each small little goal. I mean, nothing's ever going to be perfect, but if you're aware of what's going on inside of your head and how you frame each little thing, there's always a way to kind of figure out a way to move forward, be it incrementally a step at a time, or at times there's giant breakthroughs and big leaps. But I find the best way to do it is be aware of what you're thinking, how that imposes on the people around you, and then take incremental steps to make those changes to eventually succeed.
I'd like to touch on one thing on that. As far as lifting up off the field, and but I think bringing it back to the freshman class, freshman year is obviously extremely challenging. I mean, you're leaving home for the first time, you're coming to college, which is completely different academically. Socially, you got to make all new friends, and then athletically, it's just night and day. You know, it just gets so much harder here. So there's so many stresses that can come from, you know, getting to Denison. But I think it's important for the freshman class to realize that you have 3 classes above you that were in the same position as you, and they went through the same struggles as you, so people understand you know, the stresses that you might go deal with. And I think it's extremely important that people in those 3 classes have the ability to lift up the freshmen, because I know my freshman year, you know, I went through a whole bunch of things. I was homesick and everything else. But you know, it did take people, you know, in the senior class and the junior class to kind of come up to me and tell me, you know, everything's going to be okay, and to lift me up. So I do think it's really important for sophomores, juniors, and seniors to kind of connect with the freshmen and really lift them up, especially because, you know, it's going to be hard for them this year, especially with COVID and everything happening. So
yeah. And in the same token, with those seniors reaching down, we might not always be able to identify someone that's in need of help, you know.
Yeah.
You can be quiet and struggling through all these little things. I think in any team here at Denison, and I'm sure you guys can attest, that simply just raising your hand, or not even raising your hand after practice, like, geez, Dan, you know, I'm really struggling in this area, like, do you know where I can go for help, or what I should do to address like such and such a problem? We're more than willing to help at any day or time. Like, even if someone from the football team had to come up to me and say, hey, I saw this panel, I need to ask you a question, I'm more than happy to direct someone in the right direction. And I'm sure every senior, junior, sophomore on all these teams would be more than happy to help any of the new guys coming in.
And definitely, I mean, me myself, I'm more of an introvert and like kind of to myself, and especially I can definitely tell there's people at this school who feel the same way, so they can find it difficult about reaching out to people, especially upperclassmen, because it can be really intimidating, you know, starting out, being new to a school, meeting all these new people, and like it's kind of hard to reach out and feel confident and like, you know, what you want to say and like what you want to get out of it, and just understand that upperclassmen aren't scary people. I mean, we're all nice. And like you said, we're more than welcome to help anybody out, even if like you would help out a football player, I'd help out a swimmer or tennis player. It doesn't matter. Yeah. With any questions, it could be sport related, it could be school related, it could be something as dumb as like the Bears are 3-0 right now, but like just to connect the Bears. But but it's just important, like, to connect and build those relationships with the older guys, because they've been through this before. They know what to expect, and they can really, you know, open the door for you, and I mean, give you so many more opportunities about like advice, connections, so on, so forth.
Yeah, and likewise, I think a lot of the freshmen, the new guys, are all in dorms where it's mixed up. There's a lot of different athletes on the floors from different teams, as well as kids that aren't. And I would encourage most of them to try and do their best to try and make relationships with athletes on different teams and stuff like that, because their experiences, although might be not exactly the same, are similar in ways. And so having someone on your floor that's on a specific team, he's dealing with something or has found something that works for him. And so if you reach out and make those connections across the team, I think it does a lot for Denison sport as a whole. We're a really pretty connected campus, and I think that one thing that I definitely would like to see as time goes on is athletes from different teams learning from one another, because I think swimming's got potential to learn from other sports and other sports have potential to learn from us. And the more we kind of interconnect in all these different ways that we do, could probably take Denison sports even further than it is at this time.
I appreciate you all mentioning, the upperclassmen. And in fact, Anthony, I know that you started off your story as far as, seeing these guys that you kind of almost wanted to emulate. I remember being a freshman and closely looking at my upperclassmen, and frankly, I saw the good, the bad, the ugly, right? Things that I'm like, ooh, I don't want to do that, and likewise, like that's how I want to act. So I'm really curious. Maybe you could start us off with just a few of your observations, some things that you specifically noticed the juniors and seniors on your team doing when you were a freshman, and maybe how that influenced you.
Yeah, so these kind of go together, but one of the biggest things that I noticed with that class is how close they were with one another. I definitely think throughout my 3 years so far, going to my 4th year, that class was probably the most connected senior class. And they did everything. On the field, they were always talking to each other, and they also talked to everyone else on the field. But off the field, they're always together. They lived together, everything else. And the love between them was great, and you could really see that. At the same time, they had their struggles. You live with each other, and you get frustrated at everyone now and then. But one of the things I really saw was that love between them, and how they never took that for granted. And I know, playing baseball, we had our really great days where it's really easy to love everybody and everything's easy. But then you had your tough days too, our conditioning days, and that's really whenever you can kind of see people. People break down a good bit. People maybe pointing fingers, start yelling at people, but you could really see with them that whole time that actually made them closer together. The harder it got, I feel like the closer they got, and then that kind of really bled into the team a lot, that the closer they got, the closer the team got too. So I kind of really looked at them and saw how close they were and how their relations inside that class really bled into the whole team. And I think it's important to realize that even if you love someone, and that the more that not the more you can get on them, but if you kind of give them constructive criticism, that's all out of love too. I know we do it this year in our class too. Me and Taylor Parrott, I don't know if I can say names on here, but Taylor Parrott, we get on each other all the time, and it's all out of competitiveness, but it's all out of love, first and foremost though. And I think that really brings us closer together, and you can kind of see that brings the younger guys closer to as well. So I think that's one of the big things, just like the love and how close they were, and how that even when they got on each other, it was all in good nature, and how it really brought people closer together.
Great. So Trey, you talked about your journey into really seeing the hard work and that mindset. What other kinds of things did you notice, when you were a freshman, out of those juniors and seniors?
Definitely, like you said, the relationship they had with each other was, tremendous. I still get, when I'm on social media, I still see them hanging out in adult life, just doing, going to sporting events, going to concerts before COVID and stuff, and just really, just knowing that they really built that relationship when they were freshmen too. And I took that, without a grain of salt. I really bought into that, because, going into, when I lived in Shawnee my freshman year, and I had a few football guys that lived on the same floor as me, and to this day they're some of my best friends. And it's really important to build those connections, because what the seniors exemplified was that these are my boys, these are my best friends, they will help me no matter what, and they're also not afraid to tell me when I'm doing something wrong. So that's the sign of a true friend, and I really took that, and it's really benefited me a lot, because I know I have people in my corner that'll help me grow as a football player, as a student, but also challenge me to do better even outside of sports, just in life.
Dan, anything that you noticed in particular?
So the things that I've noticed in particular is because we have, as a team, and from the coaching staff, have specific things that we like set out to do. The main goal of every single class is within their 4 years to leave the program in a better place than they found it. And when I got here, we got introduced to this concept of, well, I was introduced to the concept of the services leadership, and so putting the people around you first before yourself. I mean, I think that everyone knows that within leadership, but it's a completely different thing to go out there and act it out. In my freshman year, when we have to like flip the pool around or move the bulkhead, like the seniors are the guys out there doing it. They're the guys that were out there picking up litter after some of the like us younger guys when we messed up, because they understand that it's like the image of this team and the culture of this team needs to be taught from someone, and the best way to do something is to lead by example and go out there and do it. And so that is like one of the most positive things that I got from those guys around me. And then it came down to this one race where it was for conference. It was Ryan Stevenson. He was a senior when I was a sophomore, and he was not rested or shaved or in any shape to do something incredible, and the meets came down to it, and he didn't go out and say, all right guys, you guys need to get up and put in a good relay so that we can win this meet. So it was the 200 breast on the last day, and this guy, he was beat up, there's no doubt about it, but he had to do something to show everyone else that this is like possible and we can do this. And he went on to win that race, led by example, and showed us that like you can do something if you go out there and do it when there's people depending on you. And so just through actions away from the pool, just like being a good person, cleaning up after yourself, doing tiny little things, or whether it's getting up and having a monstrous moment in a time of importance for your team, that's something that I would wish to sort of emulate moving forward. And that's like a positive sort of lesson learned and behavior that I'll take with me forever, actually.
Yeah, that's a great example. Now, I mean, all three of you are part of programs that just have wonderful team cultures, and I can tell you're all proud of those cultures, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows, right? Is there anything that you know you can put your finger on that you kind of witnessed that influenced you in a way of maybe wanting to do something different?
Wow, that's difficult, because I find it difficult to say or notice anything that's negative that's happened between like leaders in the past. We've never had a massive sort of leadership vacuum or lack of many people standing up, but what I have noticed is the more galvanized the leadership core is within a team, the better the culture amongst the rest of the team trickles down, and it allows people to come together and achieve something that is incredible. I mean, for us, last year I think was one of the best years that we've had in terms of team culture inside of the pool and outside of the pool, and those seniors did a really good job of at all times presenting a completely united front, no matter what there might have been. I can't think of the specific examples, but probably in my sophomore year we probably had one or two instances where we had a little bit of a polarizing senior class on particular situations, whether it was doing something away from the pool or in the pool. So I think the best sort of thing is, and things for people to learn, is like when you're trying to get something done as a class. And so the freshmen play an extremely important role in showing up to the party and putting something forward for the rest of the team to learn from and do. The earlier that they get together and sort of build that bond and forge those relationships as they go forward, by the time they get to our position right now, they'll have a very close-knit situation where they can leave their programs in a better place than they found them when they first got here.
Could you say the question one more time?
Yeah, I'm just curious as to if there was anything that you saw being modeled, and I'm not trying to get you to throw any in particular under the bus. Please don't, actually, right?
Yeah, that's what we avoid.
But yeah, I mean, was there anything that you just witnessed that made you think, I'd like to do this a little bit differently? Like even, Dan, the example that you used about yourself, with how you were so competitive, but you all of a sudden started exerting this energy that someone else like saw and pulled you aside, right? Like what kinds of things like that maybe did you see being modeled that have influenced you?
Yeah,
as well?
So I think last year was a great example for the baseball team. The culture on the baseball team, we have 4 pillars: grit, gratitude, mudita, and kaizen. And I'm just going to touch on mudita. Mudita is vicarious joy for others, so it's treating and feeling others' success as it's your own. And I feel like last year we didn't have that last year, and throughout the team we didn't have that. And Coach Deacon, he'll kind of say it too. But and also on top of that, we just didn't have a good season last year. It got cut short, but you could just tell something was really off, and it was really off in the relationship category of the team. And I feel like we saw that, and part of me feels like it was kind of good that we saw that happen last year, because my freshman sophomore year here, we had 2 really good teams and a lot of great things happened. We made regionals back-to-back years for the first time. So I know for my class, we really saw the highs of how good things could be, and I know kind of walking into last year, I'm like, how can anything go wrong? We just made 2 regionals. But to kind of see, when things kind of went wrong and people may started pointing fingers a little bit, people did not have that mudita piece at all, and relationships were lacking on the team. And we saw exactly how that, that affects the outcome of the season, and how not only does your record maybe suffer, but just overall team camaraderie, relationships, and how much fun you have really lacks also. So I think that's one thing coming into this year that we have really hammered down, is to make sure our relationships are really solid on the team, making sure everyone's included, including the freshman class, and making sure that that we really have that tight connection to make sure that we have the most fun we can this year, and we can get everything out of this year.
I would say, like going off last year, everything was cut short, especially you guys were in season for baseball, and you guys were approaching nationals, right, for swimming? Yeah. I know we were in off-season workouts, and I think one thing that I wish I would learn from is not take every day for granted, because something like this, I mean, it's once in a lifetime event, and it really cut through everything. It cut through our off-season. You guys were in season, of course, and then it cut through our season for this year as well. So obviously, I wish, me personally, I took our off-season workouts a little bit more serious, because before I knew it, I was sitting on my couch back home with nothing to do, when I'd much rather be running sprints out here, which sounds like it sucks, but it's a lot better than sitting at home doing nothing with my best friends, of course, the guys I've lived with for 3 years by then, or two years by then. So I mean, definitely just never take a day for granted. Even if it's like a conditioning day, you got to run or swim for 2 hours or whatever, you just got to just enjoy it, because I mean, you're going to get old someday, you're never going to do it again. But for times like this, when you're still young, you don't ever know when a crazy event like COVID will come along and just take it away from you. So that's one thing I took from older guys who, and myself included, that taking days for granted was not the best thing going on.
Yeah, I think also for the first year guys listening, obviously in terms of COVID and the challenges that it presents, is there's a learning curve here, not only for you guys coming into college with a new set of, it's not what we know, and it's probably very different to the first year experience that we had. So it takes a little bit of time for us to step into your shoes to understand what it exactly is that you're going to, with uncertainty and things that are lying around. But the biggest thing that I would say is to wholeheartedly buy into what you're doing now, because the older guys are, to a degree, teaching you what it means to be part of these teams and how to be successful in these teams, and whatever does come of it, you will know one day how to implement that when the opportunity does arrive. And so understanding that what there may or may not be doesn't really matter, and having been cut short on certain things, I would strongly encourage you to buy into everything that's going on every single day and get the most out of the experience that you can, because as you say, that can be taken from you any day. And I'm sure a lot of them as high school athletes experience that towards the end of their seasons, being it swimming or baseball, whatever other sports happen at that time.
So let me ask this: if there was one thing that you could articulate that you're really trying to model right now through your example, like I really want the freshmen to see me doing, or to see our upperclassmen group doing X, like what would it be? When you get us started, Trey?
Just like Diane said, would be just getting through it. I mean, one word that we kind of throw around in football a lot is grit, and just kind of persevering through a lot of adversity. And this is huge adversity. I mean, we preach about it every day, but it's obviously not going to be a normal season or a normal year, and you just got to persevere and get through it, and just come to practice every day with a smile and just get ready to go to work. Because to me, at least, football practice, we practice like 3 or 4 times a week, if that, and it's really the only sense of normalcy I have at this point. I mean, walking to class, seeing everyone with face masks on, or just seeing the plastic barriers in all the dining halls, it's kind of like shocking to me, and really just because from what I've been here for 2 years, and it's something I'm not used to, but just coming to practice and actually getting to throw on the helmet and pads and like hit each other is really a sense of normalcy. And I know for freshmen it's probably especially hard because you're just coming in and this is a totally new environment, and it's not even normal just given the circumstances. But for all the athletes who are in season now, or if you're just getting started with off-season workouts, it's really just show up and try to take it as like, this is what's going to get me through this week. Because if it feels normal for me, football practice would what's getting me through the rest of my week, in a sense of like, I'm going to have fun here, get to do what I usually would do in the fall on a fall Wednesday or Thursday. But then I'll just go on with the rest of my week and just know I can look forward to practice again the next day.
Dane, what specifically are you trying to put out there with your example?
So one of my biggest things is that I would never ask someone to do something I'm not prepared to do myself. And so that buys into the concept of services leadership and what we have on this team. And so through my example this year, it's my every intention to go there and work as hard as I possibly can every single day, and for everyone to see that that's what I'm doing. But I don't think that working hard is enough at this point to try and reach like new heights and new levels. Everyone out there is working hard. I think the best thing that I'm trying to do this year is to connect to as many possible people as I can and create those relationships and bonds that I would hopefully in the future come back to Denison and get to see these guys being successful. But getting to understand everyone and where they're coming from, because everyone's experience this year is completely different. A lot of people didn't get to train over the summer. You may be in a boat where you did get to train and now you find yourself at the front of the pack when you might have been at the back in the middle, you know, and so that's a new opportunity for you, and I want to see as many guys take advantage of themselves in that situation. I find myself in a situation where I wasn't as privileged, but we found ways to lift and get around and get some movement, but getting back into the water has been challenging for myself, and so I'd like to be self-aware and understand that I might not be where I am. But for this year, our saying is that we're going to be better than we were yesterday. And if I can go out there and be better than I was yesterday in terms of my effort in the pool, my attitude, being positive for everyone else around me, and reaching out and making those connections to the new guys, and making sure that I develop those connections to the guys around me. If I can do those 3 things, then I believe like I'll be setting a positive example for everyone else to follow, and allowing our athletes to fully let me learn from them and let them learn from me, and develop to, if the opportunity comes, we'll be going for it 100%.
Sounds good. How about you, Anthony?
One thing that we're trying to do and show the freshman class is to really dive into this thing head first and completely submerge yourself, team-wise, culture-wise, and program-wise. You know, this goes with every sport at Denison, but on the baseball team, it's a really special program. You know, it's not every day you have a coach like Coach Deegan and Coach Rome at the helm. It's not every day that you have a group of kids in every class like we do, and it's not every day that you have the talent like we do too. And I think if you can really just open up, be vulnerable, and really just live everything about your team, it's just such an enjoyable experience. You get to learn so many different things about yourself, you know, as well as just learning from your teammates also. And you get to go through all the highs and lows, and you get to feel all the emotions of those highs and lows also, if you really open yourself up and dive into it. And I know kind of, you know, just kind of like looking back on other people that kind of came before me and that maybe didn't do that so much. those highs and lows might not been as drastic, but I feel like those highs and lows are really what makes this whole journey special. You get to feel what it's like to be at the bottom and at the top, and I feel like that also goes for off the field too. We all, as a freshman class, we get to go to Denison, and that is just an awesome opportunity. And if you can really dive into that thing headfirst, also with all the unbelievable professionals and faculty, that can really turn out well if you take full advantage of that. You be vulnerable and you go make connections with all of them too.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Anthony said there. It's like coming to an institution like Denison. I've been to other institutions, and I've experienced school back in South Africa and seen what university is like there. And now I'm the privileged one sitting in the seat here, my senior year at Denison. And it is an extremely unique opportunity to experience things in an athletic program and outside of the athletic program, be it in the fraternities or in a cultural sort of program or something like that, whatever your interest might be. There's a wide range of things for you to take advantage of. So as much as I would encourage everyone to be involved in their program and what they do, I would also encourage freshmen to understand that there are other opportunities here at Denison, and to get the full sort of picture is to reach a little, to go out of your comfort zone and try and do something different, because I think that might be the X factor that allows you to find success beyond your years here.
Well, gentlemen, I really sincerely appreciate your time, your candidness, and being open about how your sport experience has been thus far. So I thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.